In 2006, the motion picture Idiocracy, directed by Mike Judge, humorously explored a world run by and composed of less than stellar intellects. The premise of the film was that the law of natural selection in modern civilization was rewarding those who can simply reproduce the most, and those aren't always the smartest people. A case study is offered, Trevor and Carol versus Cleavon. While Trevor and Carol want to wait until the time is right to start a family, Cleavon, on the other hand, has fathered 6 children with 3 women by the age of 22. Trevor and Carol continue to wait, and eventually Trevor dies without ever having become a father. Meanwhile, Cleavon has Cleavon Jr. to carry on his line, and just like his father, passes on his genes and all of the traits that go with him in a proficient and generous manner. Take this scenario and extrapolate it out 500 years and you have Idiocracy. The President of the United States is elected by winning the smackdown. The Secretaries of State and Defense get their jobs because they won a raffle, and Congress has been turned into the House of Representin'. Regardless of what you think of me, my opinions for this video, I highly recommend Idiocracy. You'll love it. Much like a lot of Mike Judge's work, there were characters in the film that the audience did not laugh with, but laughed at. After all, what else are fools good for? However, Judge was operating under the assumption that, as a civilization, we will always relegate ignorance and stupidity to its proper place. Real decisions and real progress will come from those among us who have taken the time and expended the effort to master the use of the tools that have enabled the human race to advance to the point it finds itself at today. Perhaps the single most important of those tools is language. Since mind reading, extrasensory perception, and mind melds are mediums confined to the world of human fantasy, our reality dictates that the only real channel we have to transfer the fruits of our intellectual labor from our own mind to that of another is through language. Language enables our species to combine our intellectual efforts, to transfer thoughts and ideas in one giant human brain to another. It allows for the intellectual and cognitive strengths of one brain to compensate for the weaknesses of another. However, language has a vulnerability. In order for language to work, everyone utilizing it must uniformly agree on the words to be used and their definitions. Without this universal agreement, it ceases to be language and is reduced to a collection of meaningless sounds and hollow gestures. For example, if I were to refer to this as a walking, and you called it a stereo paste, and yet another person insisted that it was a tooth tattoo wear washcloth, communication about this object would be virtually impossible. As the world we live in has become more complex and diverse, it has been necessary to install guardians of language to protect it from its inherent vulnerability. For example, we keep an authoritative master list of all the words that compose our language, along with their meaning, pronunciation, and proper use. For most of its existence, this master list of words has been kept in the form of a book called a dictionary. In today's digital age, the dictionary can be accessed online free of charge by anyone who is properly connected to the internet. It is a system that, despite some flaws, has been effective in ensuring that language remains effective. However, this morning when I sat down with my coffee and engaged the symphony of technological wonders, namely my laptop and the internet, I was greeted with this article. The new Oxford American Dictionary has now declared that refudiate is the 2010 Word of the Year. According to my research, the word refudiate comes from a Sarah Palin tweet in which she called on peaceful Muslims to refudiate the mosque at Ground Zero. The tweet was later deleted and replaced by another tweet which called on peaceful Muslims of the world to refute the mosque at Ground Zero. Spelling mistakes are part of the status quo of the internet, and anyone can easily be forgiven for them. Attempting to stop or combat spelling mistakes online is to drain the vocabulary of futility. However, in her admirable attempt to correct her spelling mistake, substituting an F for a P, Sarah Palin made another spelling mistake so bad that it formed another word, but one that, through no fault of its own, twisted the meaning of the sentence to such a point that it became nonsense. Demonstrating functional incompetence when using language she has spoken all of her life, Sarah Palin has betrayed a trivial intellect and an arrogance that has led her to believe that double-checking the seemingly inconsequential details is a task best left to inconsequential people. These traits, while not uncommon, certainly lead us to exclude their bearers from being the recipients of such adjectives as the intellectual, the learned, the smart. Instead of excluding Sarah Palin from the umbrella of the astute, the New Oxford American Dictionary, one of the guardians of our language, has chosen not only to decline to combat, but publicly celebrate an assault on its ward. As I scrolled to the comments section of the Yahoo article, I was expecting to see outrage for the rewarding of ignorance, complaints about the celebration of incompetence, and repudiations of the meme that stupid is the new smart. Instead, I was greeted with praise for Sarah Palin, astonishment for her ingenuity, jubilance over her new invention, and terms like intellectual and college-educated used as pejoratives. A comment by the user Berserker particularly struck me. I'll read the entire comment exactly as it appeared. It appears to me that the left are bad-mouthing Sarah Palin because they feel threatened by her. The woman is obviously educated and has a large vocabulary. She's also intelligent enough to use her spelling and verbiage skills to put together a word that, although may not be in the dictionary, clearly articulates her message. But who cares, really? Is it that important? I remember a certain Democratic politician who, when campaigning in Idaho, couldn't spell the word potato. I'm sure the leftist nitpicking will continue until she make it into the White House. Is this now what passes for intellectual or political discourse? If you would answer that question in the affirmative and not shed a tear, I would have to inquire as to your desire to see the human race succeed. By the way, Berserker, if you're watching, it was Republican Vice President Dan Quayle who, while at a photo opportunity in a New Jersey elementary school, encouraged a 6th grade spelling bee participant to add an E to the otherwise correctly spelled potato. Mike Judge's vision of a future devoid of intelligence, proficiency, and competence could be considered just a simple attempt at humor, or perhaps a commentary on the deteriorating state of our collective intellect. Or maybe it's a cautionary tale that shows us the possible consequences of rewarding stupidity. If you accept the latter, have we taken appropriate heed of the warning, or have we dismissed it and taken our first steps towards an idiocracy? In a time when there is outrage over speaking one language over another, and laws being passed requiring all to conform to a society of a single preferred language, how much care do we take of that language when we allow it to become a punchline? Instead of prosecuting Sarah Palin's linguistic crime, she's been granted retroactive immunity by the very constables we depend on to safeguard our language. And what of the reverence to history as the New Oxford Dictionary's actions spoke? Have we not turned our back on those who came before us, who respected the rules of language, and who expended the effort to master this precious, necessary, and all too human of a tool? Have we not slapped in the face those who mastered our language and with it shown us a thing of beauty? Have we not left to rot the fruits of the intellectual labor of those who mastered language and with it showed us promise? Have we not abandoned the courageous principles taught to us by those who mastered language and with it showed us hope? Have we not just seated a fool at the table of the wise?